Welcome to Schools In, your go-to podcast for cutting-edge insights in learning. From early education to lifelong development, we dive into trends, innovations, and challenges facing learners of all ages. I'm Denise Pope, and with my co-host Dan Schwartz, together we bring you expert perspectives and conversations to help you stay curious, inspired, and informed.
So, Denise, I need to tell the audience, today we are broadcasting from the Intercontinental in Los Angeles. There's about 1,000 people live, and this is more than, I think, our combined audience for the last decade, all in one spot.
Well, we are excited to have everybody here, and if you enjoy Schools In, be sure to subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune in.
So I'd like to take advantage of the real-time input to the show. This is for our listeners on the podcast. We usually don't get audience opinion, although that's something we've wanted to change. So you clap if you agree with the statement. And the statement is, AI is the WD-40 for education.
What? Okay, Dan, I don't think people, wait, can you clap if you have no idea what Dan is talking about again? When you say WD-40, are you talking about the oil thing that you squeeze?
Yes, it's sort of like oil. No, the idea is that it could move the rust out, make the parts move better, just generally make education work better.
Okay.
Okay, so let me try it the other way. Clap if you think AI is going to make education worse.
What are these questions, Dan? What are you having us clap for?
Okay. So let me introduce our audience. So we have Chris Piech, who is a computer science professor and wielder of AI. And we have Judith Fan, who is a psychology professor whose expertise is in cognitive science and how people know the world. So we got to do one question before we get to you, Chris. It's sort of a last clapping question. Clap if you took 106A.
Computer Science 106A.
So Chris is a beloved 106A teacher. He's also the beloved teacher of math for AI. Hard to imagine there's a beloved teacher for that. So Chris, you and I talked about this when the Gen AI just showed up a couple of years ago. And one of your concerns would be a loss of motivation to take CS. And then a second concern is that students might be lazy and use AI to do the problem sets. So a couple years later, what do you think?
Yeah, I was. Thanks, Dan, for the question. I was nervous. I think a lot of educators were wondering how we're going to adapt to all this change. A couple of vignettes. One is I get the chance to teach this free online class, and we say, who wants to come learn computer science? And we were about to go teach it to the world, and Gen AI was there wondering who would want to learn at this moment when all the news was about jobs disappearing and you don't need to learn how to code because AI can code. And we were ready for a smaller class, but instead we had twice as many people apply. We had 71,000 people say, like, yes, please teach me computer science.
Wait, 71,000?
Yeah, 71,000. So we said, hey, we'll have some fun. We'll learn. And also, while you're learning to program, you are learning to think. Now, at Stanford, too, I would say that students are so adaptable. I would never underestimate them. The way that they approach this new challenge has been quite inspiring. Sometimes it looks like they are going to learn in more efficient ways, but sometimes, I'd say now, it's awesome to become very entrepreneurial. They're like, hey, on some level, this is the most fun time to ever program. It's the most fun time to ever do mathematics. When I learn the core principles, I can produce 10 times as much. If I get a couple of friends who are inspired by the same cause, we can make something together. And I was saying, I had office hours just before I flew out here to LA on Friday night, and it was just filled with students coming with really principled and beautiful ideas. I had a student who is a world-famous conductor, and then he took a probability class. He got really excited about this idea of making it so that when people are learning to play an instrument, like a recorded orchestra can slow down as they need to focus on notes. And with some core principles and this excitement of the moment, he was able to go turn around and create things. And I feel like that's what I'm seeing on campus, is just a lot of creation.
So the students do they take a second computer science course, or is it just 106A? Because this is a beloved course.
Yeah, I also teach this math for computer science class, which incredibly fun. Like, come learn probability. You might not think it's as fun, but it is. We can talk about all the different ways you can apply technology to science through this language of math. And yeah, people are having fun learning that on some part, not just because they're so curious about what they can create, but also because AI has become a very important tool, and a lot of people want to know how to use it.
I want to bring Judy into the conversation, and I am excited to hear, Chris, that people are embracing it in really good ways. I think a lot of people, myself included, are sort of worried that AI is going to write the essays instead of the students doing the writing, and we're going to lose that struggle that we need, the cognitive struggle. Judy, you look at thinking that involves more than words, right? So I would love to hear you talk about how AI is used for this.
Thanks, Denise, for that question. So, as Dan mentioned, I am a cognitive scientist, so my focus is on human beings and how we think and learn. In my work, we ask, how do people take ideas and turn them into images, then use those images to think new thoughts? So take, for example, a chemist has an idea for a new drug, and the diagrams they might sketch on the whiteboard, or a football coach making a sketch to communicate to their team the details of a new play, or an economist trying to figure out what the heck is going on with the housing market. All of these different people are using diagrams and charts in all of these different ways, these powerful, versatile tools for making sense of things, communicating ideas in ways that are really difficult to express in words alone. And what's really striking is that current AI systems, and this is even the frontier models, are really struggling with these kinds of visual displays. And that's a problem if we want to build systems that truly support human thinking and learning in the real world, including in classrooms. Because human thinking relies on integrating information from lots of different sources and not just text in order to connect the dots.
So, Judy, I mean, this is a big issue, right? So, how are you doing anything in your lab to be working on this problem? What are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my group, we are trying to come up with solutions to this problem by conducting detailed analyses of where these AI systems are going wrong, poking their internal circuits to figure out what's causing those failures, and then coming up with ideas for how to make those systems work more reliably. And this is important also in a way that's more interpretable and trustworthy.
So can I ask a practical question?
Sure.
So a lot of people around me say that generative AI is going to ruin critical thinking because it'll write your paper for you. I don't quite understand that. I've usually thought through the critical parts of my paper before writing, but there is a place where it could help. So before I write a paper, I get this sloppy theory and I try and think, can I get a visualization for this? Like, would a Venn diagram, how about a pyramid? Clouds, and so could I do this? Could I tell the Gen AI, here are all my thoughts, would you make a visual representation for me, or is this is just not there yet?
We're not there yet, but I think it's a beautiful vision. It sounds like your whiteboard looks like mine. So I really think that something that is true about human creativity and the way that we think and reason, and also decades of work in educational and cognitive psychology has supported this idea that when people are grappling with really complex, abstract ideas, it's really good to have options. Words, pictures, numbers, code. All of these are really helpful ways of getting different angles and triangulating towards some new idea. And basically, AI systems are never going to truly support human thinking and learning if they're not able to participate in these multimodal exchanges using all of the information channels that humans naturally use.
So Denise, have I told you the graphic novel application we created?
You have not, Dan, but I bet we're going to hear it now.
Okay, funny, you should guess that. So we were teaching high school students about the Great Oxygen Event. This is when cyanobacteria started producing oxygen. It changed the atmosphere over 1 billion years, killed everything because oxygen's toxic, made the way for new biodiversity. And so the way the application worked is they wrote the story, and then they put in prompts, and then the AI generated the image for them of the comic book. And so we compared this to kids who had to draw the image themselves. Any predictions? Smart, educated.
I mean, I would think that the AI had like a cool factor, so they probably like that. Is that right? No?
We didn't even ask them, do you like it?
Oh.
I'm a tough teacher. I don't care.
What did you ask them?
We asked them things like, did it represent your ideas?
Okay.
And the interesting thing was they said yes to the same degree as the kids who drew it by hand, which I thought was quite interesting because that means they don't think they're cheating when they use the AI if it's showing if they think it's them. They also learn more, which was interesting. So being able to do this multimodal, these different representations, these different ways of getting at the concept seemed to help them get it better.
Let's talk about cheating, Dan, because I think it's on a lot of people's mind.
So we've been talking about the student's perspective on this, and I want to think a little bit about the teacher's perspective. And my favorite current story is a professor who told his class, I'll tell you what, you write your essays with ChatGPT, I will grade them with ChatGPT, and we can just all go to the beach. Right? So I sort of like that. But on the more serious side, I've got an audience question for you, right? So some people think that AI could displace the teacher. Other people think it'll make teaching the best job in the world, to have this support. So here's the question for the audience. Applaud if you agree with this. AI will make teaching a better job.
I like that. They like it. They like it.
Yeah, wait till I ask this one. AI will make teaching a worse job. Oh. So Chris, it's sort of like you say, nobody really knows what the future's going to bring on this one. Yeah. So Denise, the cheating question. It's like a big question. And so you've done some research on this. I thought maybe you could share what you've been finding about the prevalence of cheating with the appearance of the AI tools.
Sure. So Challenge Success has been collecting data on academic integrity for years, long before even the pandemic and before ChatGPT came really out in the public eye. And so we were in a really good position to do a sort of before the ChatGPT wave and an after, and actually at the same schools, even though the students were not all the same, but we had some overlap. And let me just tell you, I don't know if this is going to be shocking or not, but the cheating before ChatGPT, and now on our survey, we list multiple ways that you can cheat. You can copy from someone's paper, you can plagiarize, right? You can use an unauthorized technological aid on an exam or an assessment. So lots of different ways. And the cheating rates before ChatGPT were in the 70 to 80%.
That hurts.
Yeah.
That hurts.
I mean, and this, it's not just our study, lots of studies actually found very similar things. Now, to be fair, there's lots of different ways, some of that was copying homework or working with a friend when the instructor said, don't do it. So, I mean, I'm not throwing all these kids under the bus. But then, what do you think? Should we do a little audience clap? Clap if you think that after ChatGPT came out, and others, the cheating went up. Clap if you think it went up. Clap if you think it went down. It stayed the same. And
that's sort of how the vote went. It's half up, half down.
Yeah, half out. Right. I mean, they are using it more. So even though overall cheating rates are about the same, many more students are using the device for academic integrity infractions. However, the overall use of kids using the device now is about 70 to 80%, not using a device, sorry. The overall amount of kids who are using and experimenting with AI for academic reasons, not just for cheating, has really gone up. And so our most recent number is about 80% of high school kids. And for teachers, it's actually much lower. It's about 30%. So we have a big gap. We have kids who are really experimenting and doing things, both for good and maybe for not so good. And we have teachers who are really not taking on that mantle as much. So that's a worry of mine. And then the other thing we're seeing, and we go to schools all over the place. We put on professional development workshops on integrating AI into your classroom. We do parent workshops. What do you do about AI? And there are a lot of real serious issues that we're seeing with AI around mental health and kids, using chatbots to get advice, and some cyberbullying. We have environmental issues and privacy issues. But there's a lot of good coming out of it that we're going to talk about. And what we're finding is the kids are really confused because there's not very good policies.
So Denise, do you think teachers and students have the same definition of cheating? Assuming there's not a right answer, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not 2 + 2 = 4, but like on an essay or some more constructive project?
It's really confusing for the kids. What they will say is, well, we're not supposed to use AI, but they are allowing us to use Google to do research, and if you use Google, Gemini pops up, so are we breaking the rules? Are we not breaking the rules? It's very confusing for them, and different teachers have different policies or just don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's the way I was with my son about other things. Judy, you teach. Are you worried about it? Are you worried about cheating in your classes, or you've set up something so it won't happen? Or?
Yeah, I've been following the same work that Denise just described, and I'm no more worried as a teacher now than I was 3 years ago. About 2 years ago, in the introductory statistics course that I teach, Stat 60, anybody? Okay.
Hey, Judy.
We started integrating problems into our problem sets that required the use of LLM products. We wanted to see how students would learn how to edit and critique code generated by an LLM. That became a learning objective for us. When it came to assignments, we assign a lot of homework. All of our quizzes are take home. The problem sets are, of course, done at home. And we encourage students to work with each other to use Google, Stack Overflow, and any other resources they have at their disposal, just as we expect they would in the real world, and come back and submit their work and really learn something. Now, this quarter, what we're experimenting with is weekly one-on-one oral exams. We run these every Friday, and you have to sit down across a table in front of a TA, okay, and answer a question sampled at random from a quiz you already took.
So I told you about this, that so a lot of people come to me with their technological ideas, and one guy has made an AI bot that it takes the teacher's face and then does the oral exam for the teacher.
It's terrifying.
That's a little scary. That scares me. Chris, you're teaching too, and I know that CS professors are often worried about cheating. What are you seeing? What's your take on this?
I'm going to build off what Judy said, because we had a similar response. I actually have talked to a lot of people that in this moment of AI, when we all have these new affordances, the thing that will really distinguish great teaching experiences is the human touch. So also, like Judy, I have my students meeting one-on-ones every week. And when we do code in place, like the special sauce is that we have a human mentor who is meeting with you. And this isn't just for getting great education. It's not just about plagiarism. It's also about this moment in time when some students are feeling lonely and they're looking for that mentorship. I really do think the special thing about maybe a Stanford education is not always just the problems you're solving, but also the people you're meeting along the way and those connections. So isn't that so ironic? We've been working on AI technologies for so long, but in this moment of AI in education, I'm putting my money in the human touch.
I love that. I absolutely love that. How are you doing? You're doing a human touch with thousands of students?
Yeah, we do this.
Do you
yearly.
sleep? You never sleep.
No. Yeah, obviously, when you're at Stanford, you could be meeting with a professor who is like well-established in their field, or you could meet with an older classman who is going to be the leader of the field of the future. And I feel like this is a great way to accelerate the sort of one-on-one interactions we could have. So you meet with these peer mentors who are a little bit older.
Love it.
Yeah, so so social is important, and a lot of the concern about sort of replacing the teacher is you're not going to be able to motivate the kid enough. So the social's there, you're interacting with a human, there's something at stake, and so that amps it up. But I'm going to place my bet on making tasks where students just don't want to cheat. So like if I'm inviting people over for dinner, I sort of don't want to say I cooked it, but then get it from the restaurant. I want to like make it great.
Yeah.
And so I think I can come up with assignments like that.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we're doing at Challenge Success when we go into the schools. We actually say to the teachers, when are the places in your classes or at your school where kids would never even think about cheating? Right? They're putting on a play. They are creating a project that they're super excited about, right? So motivation, engagement.
No, it's good. The challenge is how do you get algebra in there? That's going to be the challenge.
I bet these two
Yeah,
would
yeah.
absolutely find a way to do that.
I just, Judy and Chris have been around. I'm sort of curious, what's the most interesting AI application you've seen that could be relevant to education?
Okay. I like to think that I was working on AI for education before it was cool. So back in the day, like the great algorithms we wrote was keeping track of what people knew while they solved problems. And so if you use an app like Duolingo to learn language, it's using an algorithm that we built in the lab. And at the time, we could help people solve multiple choice questions, which was not the dream. The dream of AI for education was we could deeply understand people while they were solving engaging, exciting problems like Dan was talking about. But that was hard, right? Of course, being able to get that sort of rich, structured. And we're at the moment where we're starting to realize that dream. And that plays out things like grading. We built this tool with code.org that won the STEM Teacher of the Year award to help teachers with grading so that they can do their assessment. And it all comes down to, can you really understand misconceptions over time while people are working on richly structured tasks? And can you express it in language so that teachers can then build off of it and come up with adaptive solutions? Like we're living in that dream world where we're seeing that come to life, like on the order of this year, perhaps.
Wait, so Chris, how is that different from what Dan said, like, let's all go to the beach? You don't just say to the AI, grade these papers, poof, right?
Well, there's an intellectual part here, which is just like, can you understand a student? What you do with that, there's a lot of ways it could play out. But as I said, I have a high-touch human experience. It means when my teachers go to work with their students, they know exactly where their students are. Here's a summary of where everything is. When we have an opportunity to give extra help to somebody, we know exactly who could benefit the most. But I leave it up to other practitioners to figure out how to use that technology.
That's really
So
exciting.
there's a lot of people who are trying to make chatbots that help teachers. And say you're a beginning section leader and you really don't know how to teach, and the chatbot will sort of lean over and whisper, ask a question. so this is kind of one of the uses that's beginning to show up.
Little Cyrano de Bergerac action there. I love it. Judy, your turn. What are you seeing that's super cool?
Okay, so I want to tell you about two things I'm really excited about. The first is the use of generative AI tools to help kids author engaging learning experiences that they want to have. So one of the ongoing projects in my lab is an effort to empower fourth grade students to build math games that are really immersive, that also genuinely help them learn math and that are relevant to their interests. And I'm super excited to see where that's going.
Wait, you got to give us an example.
I like that one. So there's two faculty who are collaborating to help young women create STEM video games to get them interested in STEM. Have you heard about this one?
Absolutely. I actually just heard that team give a talk.
Are you the person? No.
We're another team supported by the same Joyful Learning Through Creation.
But Judy, can you give us an example of immersive math so people know what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of educational games in the App Store right now that are essentially worksheets with some animations and sound effects thrown in. And those are pretty shallow, like the kind of gamification that you're looking at there is really quite shallow, even though they might be engaging in the sense that a kid might spend a lot of time playing that game. What we're really trying to do is help lower the barrier of entry for kids who may not yet know how to code. They haven't taken Chris's class, okay? But they can imagine a world where they're, say, learning how to bake, or they're learning about fractions. It's an actual world that they get to build and author that is where the graphics and characters and are ones who they come up with. And the mathematical concepts are actually embedded in the storyline. And the stakes of the story and the interactive story that's told in the game actually engages and invites discovery of those mathematical concepts. I'm just really excited about.
Oh, I love it. So we did a study where we asked hobbyists, all kinds of hobbyists, like gardeners, motorcycle drivers, what was the greatest motivation? And the top motivation was seeing the fruits of their labor, right? Getting to make it and then see what it becomes. It's
Absolutely.
Incredibly motivating. I like it. Chris, what do you got?
Another really cool application that you've
Yes.
seen with AI. We're
So-
just
something-
telling people cool stuff.
Yeah, okay. So beyond the ability to like understand what people know and
Yeah,
to
yeah.
grade, I think this ability to generate and create. I think this is a moment for adaptation, right? I feel like this is a chance where our students are adapting, and as teachers, we have to adapt. And the thing that seems to be the most powerful fuel is students creating in new ways. When we teach, now when you learn to program, if you learned to program before, we'd teach you print statement, input statement. Now we teach you, okay, inside your program, you can call ChatGPT so that you can make that tool fuel your innovation. And I feel like leaning into that creation, hey, you have a good idea, let's work through the math proof with AI, is going to lead to this great explosion of what people are able to make.
Denise?
These people are doing really cool things.
Yeah.
Right? And you're not, if you're excited about it and you're motivated and you've got this cool stuff happening, why would you then cheat? It doesn't make sense, right? We're not gonna. It's been very stable, folks, for many years that it's a high percentage, but we're gonna capture people and get them curious and excited in ways that I think is really, really cool.
It's time for takeaways.
It's time for takeaways.
Yes.
So I think Judy gets the first. Judy, in a sentence or so, what is your takeaway from either this conversation or how you've been thinking about AI?
And you can use like 4 semicolons. If it,
Dan's teasing me about that, the run-on sentences. It is not foreordained how AI will impact education. It is up to us, okay? We have to decide what we value, what our values are, and as Dan really eloquently put in the E Pluribus Stanford talk, we may not agree all the time on what we value, and that's the hard part, actually. The engineering, the design, that's something that we should engage in such that the learning environments that we build express those values and give dignity and agency to our lives, and we can actually build a world that we want our kids to grow up in. And I really think it really comes back to what we value, and the technology follows that.
oh, 3 semicolons. It was really
No,
good.
but it was good. It was good. Yes. Round of applause for that. I love that it's not foreordained. I love that. Chris, you get your takeaway.
Okay. Education hasn't always worked for everyone. There's a lot of people for whom the learning system wasn't the dream that we imagined. You have young children, and they have this joy of learning. They have this thrill when they can do things that they couldn't do before, even if it's something difficult like learning to read, write, or even walk. And somehow, this is a great opportunity to get closer to that dream. We have a moment where maybe we can create that sort of education that would work for more people and would allow people to hit higher heights. I want us to choose to seize this moment, not be so fearful of it, but let's create that future that will support the Stanford students and the learners abroad.
Round of applause for that. Dan, I usually put you on the spot on the show for a takeaway, but we're gonna do it a little bit differently this time.
What?
Yeah, I know. Don't panic. What would you say that would be a very positive thing about AI? We want to leave people here with hope. This is an LA group that wants hope. Dan Schwartz, you are the epitome of someone who is.
So I can tell you what is not positive, and then I'll say what's positive.
Okay, all right.
So what's not positive is my brother, who's quite a bit older, sends me a poem for my birthday. He asked ChatGPT to write me a poem about Dan Schwartz at Stanford. And he doesn't know that there's several Dan Schwartzes at Stanford.
Oh, no.
And it turns out I wear really colorful bow ties all the time. And I sort of said to him, you do understand, this isn't me. He goes, oh, God, it was such a great poem. I'm so pleased. so that's a downside. I think on the upside, I'm agreeing with Chris and Judy. So our current educational system is sort of based on the push to universal education that started 150 years ago. And the main goal was optimizing student throughput, right? You had to increase the capacity, 30 kids to a teacher, conveyor belt instruction. I think this is a moment with the science of learning, the technology, the data, where we could actually change it and sort of reach all the learners. So I'm on the same side.
See, that was super positive. I was worried that this was going to be a scary negative live podcast, but I'm feeling very, very excited. So first, I want to thank our very positive audience for sitting through us. Let's give a round of applause for you. We want a big round of applause for our amazing, amazing guests. Thank you, Judy and Chris. And I want to thank everybody listening out there for tuning in to Schools In. We want you to be sure to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in. And we'd love for you to follow the Stanford Graduate School of Education on social media. And as we end all of our podcasts, I will say thank you. I'm Denise Pope.
I'm Dan, yes to the WD-40 Schwartz.
Oh, no.